his whole idea was like, I'm gonna come and test this guy and see if making the 160 pounds, which was probably difficult because he's been kind of bouncing between Chris Eubank, I'm saying, has been bouncing between 168 and 160 pounds. This fight was fought at 160, a weight that I think Chris Eubank hasn't really been fighting at too much in his career. I think he started out at 168, so he's been kind of jumping around, and I think he's 35 years old. So to consistently make around that weight for most of your career is usually pretty difficult. Most fighters, once they get up in age, they start moving up in weight, and he's actually going the other way. So, but as the fight went on, the more class, more experience of Chris Eubank kind of showed, but a lot of it was his experience, and a lot of it was hard. And you saw, the last 4 rounds, both guys were just kind of, I wouldn't say fighting on instinct, but you just saw that it was just like a fight for pride. Both their fathers fought, I believe, twice. I think Nigel Benn was knocked out, I think, in the first fight against Chris Eubank Sr. In the 90s. I think that was a stoppage in about maybe 9-10 rounds or something like that. I don't have all the details in front of me. And that was at 160. And then the rematch they had, I don't know how many years later, but the rematch that they had, I believe, was a draw. And then I don't think they had a third fight. So there's always been like kind of a rivalry there. And I believe the second fight, I believe Benn, more people kind of thought Benn won that fight. So this was kind of like taking care of some of the unfinished business between the two fathers. Who actually did, kind of embrace after the fight. And I think everybody kind of came out with, Chris Eubank Jr. did win the fight by decision. All judges had it 116, 112 across the board, which I thought was a fair result. Most people had Eubank winning the last couple rounds. So Benn kind of started fast. Middle rounds, Eubank kind of got into his groove, into his rhythm. And then after that, both fighters kind of seemed to like leave it all in the ring in the last 3 rounds, and kind of more of the technical aspects of boxing went out the window, and it just turned into a real old school phone booth style slugfest that fans loved. So it was definitely a great fight. Where do these guys go from here? I've heard, I listened to some other shows, and people were talking about him possibly fighting Canelo Alvarez. I don't know about that, man. That's not a good fight for Chris Eubank, but obviously he's a big ticket seller, so that might be a fight in the future for Canelo. But obviously Canelo's got to get past William Skull. Most people think he's going to do that, but then he's got to get past Terrence Crawford. So actually a better fight in my mind would be, I know I'm kind of just going in a completely another direction here, but and I was actually watching an interview with Crawford the other day with Shannon Sharp on Club Shay Shay, and Terrence Crawford was saying that there's no rematch clause with him against Canelo. So if Terrence Crawford wins, actually a big fight would be, and probably a pretty winnable fight would be Crawford against Chris Eubank Jr. in the UK. I mean, wow, what a fight, or what an atmosphere that would be. I don't think it would be much of a fight. I think Crawford would just beat the brakes off of him. But obviously, the name recognition, they put on great shows in the UK. The undercard on this show wasn't that great, but this whole card was about the main event. And main events don't always deliver, but this one really kind of exceeded the expectations of many and myself. I really enjoyed the just the whole fight itself. The buildup had a lot of intrigue to it, with Chris Eubank slapping Conor Benn at one of the press conferences with an egg because, they had a fight previously. About a couple years ago, they were scheduled to fight, and then Connor Benn tested positive for a performance-enhancing drug, and he stated that I guess the reason why whatever the substance in the system came from, I guess, eating too many contaminated eggs. I don't know. It's just so his response was to slap him, open-handed with an egg, and so that kind of created a lot of it created a lot of buzz on social media, so to speak. So that kind of made it was a good lead-in, got a lot of attention in the public, and obviously 65,000 people showed up, so that just showed you it had a lot of interest in the UK, and from my understanding, it was trending a lot post-fight, so I decided, I'd like to just kind of get my 2 cents on it, but yeah, that's pretty much it. Great fight. Both guys were warriors. I think their stock went up, and I think there's some interesting options for Connor Benn. If there is no rematch, he can go back to 147. I don't know if he can make 147, but he could also fight at 154 pounds. There might be some intriguing matchups there for him because he does have some name value, and based on this fight, it shows that, he is somewhat of a ticket seller. I don't know how well he's going to sell tickets unless he has the right opponent or right dance partner, but that remains to be seen. And then I already, also obviously discussed Chris Eubank's potential options. One option for Chris Eubank would be to just kind of, just retire. You know what I mean? I don't think he's really going to get much better at this point, and I don't think he should be fighting at 160. I think that was definitely apparent, like in his legs, and he just looked kind of spent in the second half of the fight, and he was just fighting on instinct and will. And at 168, I think he's just a little bit too small, and he's not that fresh. So you'd kind of have to select the right types of opponents for him at this point of his career. You don't want him. He doesn't need to be taking too much punishment. I think he's made enough money at this point. He's been very carefully matched throughout his career. So you don't want to put him in with somebody like a David Benavidez or anybody like that at this point in his career. That would be career suicide. So pretty much Connor Benn, Jerome Ennis possibly. That might be an interesting fight. I don't think he could beat Ennis, but it would definitely be something that the public would be interested in, something I think would probably sell pretty well, would do well, and just a person, Ennis not a huge personality, but Connor Benn, I think, could help sell that fight, so that might be interesting. And then obviously some other potential options at 154. So that being said, another episode for you. Like I told you before, I'm going to be trying to put up more original content on here weekly. So look forward to doing that. And have a great Sunday. And I just wanted to say today's my mom's birthday. She passed almost 2 years ago. So today's her birthday, and I just want to say rest in peace, and gotta go visit my mom. All right.